think this last year I was trying to think about who we might ask for our speaker. And I was talking to my sponsor, and we were looking at options. And I remember somebody had said to me, sort of a challenge, "Oh, well, you can't get that person to speak." And I was like, well, I'm always ready for a challenge. So it was absolutely, it was fabulous. And I went to my sponsor and I said, well, what do you think about this person? And she said, well, I know her. Let me give her a call. And I've gotten a chance to meet with her this morning during a workshop, and I've heard such wonderful things about her. It's my pleasure to introduce Artis G.
Kiss, kiss, hug, hug. Hi, everybody. I'm Artis, and I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon.
Hi, Artis.
Hi. I'm a little nervous. I'm not afraid of you. I need to ask a couple of questions before I start. Are there any newcomers to Al-Anon out there? We don't want to embarrass you, like, you could do that. But would you stand up if you're new to Al-Anon? All right. You want to give us your name?
Ron.
Hi, Ron. I want to personally welcome you to Al-Anon, and there are a few things my sponsor taught me to share before I share, and that is that I don't represent Al-Anon. That's a speaker is someone that actually gives back to you what you have given to them. That's what a speaker does. Some of you wanted entertainment. Okay. No. And the other thing is I have no original solutions. I learned everything through the grace of God and the books and other people's experience, strength, and hope. If I had anything original, I would charge you. And I'm not going to charge you, so I'm just going to give it away. And I'm really emotional because this is actually the first time in my recovery that I've been asked to share how I got to Al-Anon. I've never been asked to share that before. I sponsor a lot of Al-Anons, and I can share on that level, but never at a group level. And I want to thank, what's her name? Oh, Carrie. Carrie and whoever she bitch slapped to get me to speak. I want to thank those guys. And I really know I know what it's like to be on a committee, so I know it's not easy to especially argue about because the speaker represents you, right? Whoever picked me. So anyway, I understand all that, and I want to thank Carrie. Her and Lori. There are really, really pretty lesbians here, but aren't Lori and Carrie just a beautiful couple? We don't see that a lot, in Minnesota. And we know how beautiful they are as a couple, but we really know how sick they are apart. So, so I wouldn't worry about what they got. God, I really, I want to also thank the committee for the basket. Let me show you what they got me. Oh, this is good. There. That was my basket. I want to thank the committee. I really do like it. And I don't know how to get rid of these feelings for you inside me. But did the other speakers get a basket? Oh. Okay. Did they get a basket? Did theirs have $100 in it? Did it? Where are the others? Where's Deb? Oh, Barb. Okay. There you go. I tell you, I really have enjoyed the Al-Anon workshop that I went to this morning. That I can't think of her name. So she introduced. I can never say that name, but anyway, it was really good. I can't say the name because that's what they used to call me, and I get it confused. And I want to thank Roger that what a great workshop he did. And I'm telling you, I'm just having a really great time. I'm just all that I'm here as an Al-Anon, and I get to share that part of me. My Al-Anon birthday is January of 1985. I'm a consistent Al-Anon. That means that I have never stopped. And I have an Al-Anon sponsor in my Al-Anon home group, the Serenity Group, and I've gone through the steps and the traditions, and I'll continue to go through them. But how I got there, my higher power is so smart, and I really believe when we admitted we're powerless over alcohol and our lives have become unmanageable, I believe it's going to take what it takes to get to that step. And then I believe it takes what it takes to get to Al-Anon. I don't believe we all come in the same way, and nobody really does. And here's the part that the reason it's a miracle that I'm in Al-Anon is I never cared if they got sober. I hated them. And I still, when I say it, it sounds funny because I've talked on a one-to-one level about my hatred for the alcoholics that I had so long. And it's just amazing where I'm at today about it. But my mother is a bartender. My father was a customer. And I grew up in beer joints and nightclubs. And I'm a real lesbian. I was born gay. I've never been with a man, never touched one of those things, never cared to, never had that desire, never knew that I was even gay till somebody told me. They called me a queer, and that's when I knew that's what it is. And I didn't even know what it was, that I wasn't like the other women, the other little girls. And I played marbles. I was a tomboy. There wasn't any butcher femme then. And I met my first gay guy when I was 7. He was 7. And I was playing marbles with the other little boys. And he came up with a bag of beautiful marbles. And I'll never forget him. And he came up, and I thought I wanted those marbles so bad because you have to win them. You draw a circle in the dirt, and then you shoot them out. And he said he didn't want to get them dirty. And the other little boys started calling him sissy, and I took up for him, and that's how the whole relationship of lesbian and gay men started. Because I protected him from those other little boys. And we did some marble trading and things like that. But I grew up with those kind of guys, and I met, I've always been in bars. I never met a sober person actually till I came to the recovery. And when you think about step one, I don't even recognize it. They did a movie I saw not too long ago about Lillian Gish. She was an old-time actress. And they showed her bottom into alcoholism. And her bottom was my lifestyle. And I didn't even grasp how being raised in the disease of alcoholism, I didn't even recognize it. And it was just, a lot of the Al-Anons have said, it's just a normal part of our lives. My sponsor, when I came into Al-Anon, because I talked so loud, she thought I was losing my hearing. So she had my ears checked, and they were just perfect. It was all that yelling in the family. I had to yell to be heard. I have 7 brothers: Tommy, Ronnie, Warnie, Gary, John, Wayne, and David. And there was no sister, and there was just me and Mom, and she drank, and he drank, and they drank. And that was my lifestyle till I came to you. And the thing is that when I would come home, I knew that they would start drinking at school. I knew that what time they would start. And I knew that I didn't understand it because, you know what, I didn't like them not drinking. I liked it when they drank. They're very violent between drunks. And I didn't understand it. I just knew I didn't want to be like them. I didn't want to be anything like them. But you don't, when you're little, like somebody shared, you're dependent on somebody you hate. It's just a strange feeling. I was never allowed to eat at the table with them. I had to eat alone. And I never knew there was something wrong with that till I came to Al-Anon. And what I found out is that I just thought there weren't enough chairs. All those years, I just assumed there weren't chairs, so I ate alone in the living room by myself. And I found out, I'm a product of one of my mother's affairs. And they didn't divorce. For 52 years, they stayed together. But she had boyfriends on the side, and he had prostitutes. But they never divorced. And I thought, and I hear about people broke up over their parents' divorce. I don't know. I don't see it either way being great. There wasn't anything great about them being together. But the lifestyle that I lived in those days, as being the only girl, was survival. I don't remember little girl things, and I can't stand it when a girl cries. I mean, it was just that I just stop your crying, because I was raised by brothers to not feel, to not think, to not cry. Don't cry at all, or you get the crap beat out of you. And they would beat me up all the time. And my mother, she'd get drunk, and I was the one that our alarm clock was their fights. Once they started fighting in the morning, we all knew it's get up, go to school. That's the alcoholic home is get up and go to school. And then they would say, and 8 kids, the parents for some reason want the kids to take one of their sides. And we were always pulled. Isn't that right, Artisan? Yeah, Mom. Isn't that right, Artisan? Yeah, Dad. And he just pulled back and forth all the time. And I just thought it was a normal way of living. And I found the gay community when I was 13. I played softball. Surprise. I played softball. And I didn't even know I was gay, and these girls kept saying things I didn't get, like, what's up? I didn't know anybody was flirting. But they took me to a gay nightclub, and I was 13, and then they took me to a bar called the 8th Day Lounge in Tulsa, and I tell the story. I had, in those days, you just had to have an ID. You didn't really have to look the ID. And I had an ID that said I had 35. And, I didn't want to drink. And I didn't like drinking. And, to be cool in high school and things like that, and I've never shared this from the podium, and don't tell anybody in AA. But I would put water in a beer bottle so I could be part of those people's hangouts, because I didn't know, what to do, because I tried drinking and I lost control of myself. And I didn't want to drink. I just hated them. The fights. My mother came home bloody one night, and I'll never forget it. She was blood all over her. I said, "What happened?" And she goes, "Your so-called father." And I grabbed a baseball bat to beat him up. I kicked that screen door open, and I went out there. I said, "Where is he?" He goes, "He's in the hospital." And she goes, "By the way," and she got me and my 2 brothers up and said, "Go out there in the yard with a flashlight and try to find his finger." And I went, "His finger?" And she goes, "Yeah, he cut it off when he slammed the door." So we all went on. Me and Dave and Gary go, "We're looking for a finger." And we're out there in the middle of the night with flashlight, and I was terrified because I'm trying to picture my dad's finger without his hand, and my Gary found it, and they took it, and they couldn't get it back on. But every time I saw him move his hand, I felt like, we could have done better. But my mother was the kind of alcoholic that I had to beg her to go to school. She wanted me to stay home with her and watch soap operas. She was so depressing between her drunks and her whatever. And I would say, "Mama, I don't want to stay home." And she goes, "You are staying home." It was the opposite of what normal kids do, which I would stay and sit on the couch with the rubber feet. She had hangovers, and we watched The Edge of Night over, and then I'd have to make up my homework, and I just didn't want to stay home. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be somebody. And she said, "You're going to be a bartender like me." And I didn't want to be a bartender. And but I grew up in it. I did my homework in the bars. I never went to a prom. I never went to a football game. I never dated a guy. And my brothers, and they were so cruel. I mean, they were very bigoted. And one day they decided I should go on a date, and I was like 16 or 17. I've never been on a date. And I'm finding the gay community in secret. And I came home from school, and they said, "We got you a date." I went, "A what? A what?" And they said, "A date. Get ready." That's how they would and I'd say, "What kind of date?" And they go, "A guy. You're going out with a guy." And I'm telling you, I went into like panic attack. I just thought, I don't want to go out with a guy. They said, "You're going." And so with my brothers, I got dressed up. This guy came in a car, and it had cardboard windows in the back. And he looked like, the plumber. And I don't know how to describe it even more than that. And so anyway, so I got in the car, and we went 3 blocks, and I said, "Listen, I feel real sick. Why don't you take me to the 7-Eleven? I got to run in and get an aspirin. I really don't feel good." I was hugging the door. He goes, "All right." And so he drives to the 7-Eleven, and I got out of the car and ran. I ran. I knew I wasn't like that. It made me sick to think of going out with a guy. And so just like it would make a straight person sick to have to go out with a lesbian. It was that kind of feeling. And I just couldn't do it. I was born this way. And that was my life till I came to you, just constantly trying to find where I belonged in life. And I joined the Army to go to get the GI Bill to go to college, because my mother told me I didn't need college. I was just going to get married and have kids. And I said, "I'm not." And nobody would listen to me. And so when it was like I would say, I don't want to do that. "You're not going to college. It's stupid. It's a waste of money for women." And I just couldn't believe it. She goes, "And you're going to quit that softball because you're scratching your legs up." I go, "What the? Why can't I play softball?" She goes, "Because if you scratch, you have bad legs, men won't look at you." She was so obsessed with men. And these boyfriends that would come over, I hated them. If they came over, my dad would go to work, the boyfriends would come over, and then I would have to go outside. Whether it was raining, snowing, hot, it didn't matter to her. And the disgusting feeling I had in my heart was, how can you put a man before your own kid? And she did that all the time to me, and the only daughter. Even my aunts came from Chicago and said that, the way she treated me was terrible, but I did not recognize it at that time. I'm talking about learning it through Al-Anon, because I thought that was a normal way. I really didn't think she treated me that bad, because a kid wants their mother no matter how bad. And I'll give you, God even showed me this. I was at an ice cream store, 115 degrees in Tulsa. And this woman, there were 3 little boys in the back seat in those little underwear, and they probably were 7, 6, and 5 probably, sweating like pigs, hot. And I get out of the car, and she has a back door open with a fly swatter hitting them. And I go up, and I don't know, something just inside me, and I just put my hand up and stopped the fly swatter from hitting them. And before I could say anything to her, the little boy said, "Leave my mom alone." And I understood that. I understood what those kids meant. And I thought and this is in recovery that happened. And I just said to the woman, "You're just probably having a bad day. Why don't we go in and cool down and get the kids some ice cream, And I'd be nice if she said, isn't that great?" She said, "F you," and get the hell out of my face. And, but what I saw was me. Beat the shit out of me, but don't you say anything about my mother and that's the way an alcoholic family is. You can terrorize and beat the shit and molest each other, but if somebody outside that family unity does it, will attack you like animals. And those 3 little boys were a great example of me, and I saw it. And so I continued on, and after I found these bottoms, and I didn't find them I hit these bottoms, and I winded up in another program. And And I tell you, I did not take that first drink till I was in my late 20s. But the speaker last night explained how a woman seems to hit the bottoms faster in some areas, and I was one of those because I fought not to drink. I took prescription pills. I was going to mental institutions on my vacation. I went there because I couldn't deal with life. It was like I was nuts. But I was working on this career that was working for me. And do you know why I could work? You know why we can work? Because somebody teaches us how to work. Somebody shows us exactly what to do, and we do what we have to do, and we do it. And I was trying to get through school, and I got back out of the Army, and I had Jane Fonda, the protest was going on, racial integration was going on, the peace marches were going on, and I got into a place, and it's a character defect. It's in step 2. I can't believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. You know, I've never had sanity, so I can't be restored to it. And that's how I felt. But when I read that second step, and then the Al-Anon, it talks about the insanity. And it's in the opening. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. When I first heard it, I was awed. And it goes like this. We must change our attitudes. You know, if we put our problems in true perspective, they don't have the power to control us, our thoughts, or our lives. And I heard that and I thought, what is that? What does that mean? You can hear it, but you can't I couldn't grasp it. And I would think, oh my God, you know. And I know I'm jumping around, but I love that part about Al-Anon when they read that in the opening. Just like the alcoholics love it when it says, you know, rarely have we seen a person fail. Way! I love that part when they read that in Al-Anon. So I'm in this other program, not in Al-Anon yet, so I'm jumping ahead. I'm in this other program, and I've gone through the steps, and the compulsion to use any kind of chemical was removed from me immediately. And I remember sitting in the speaker meeting, sitting in the back like they have a partition like this that separated one room from another, and I was sitting back there, and Sharon E. was sitting next to me, and I had just a year. And while I was listening, I leaned my chair back against the wall, and I heard this laughter. Laughter I've never heard before. I mean, this laughter just seeped through the walls to me, you know, and I was listening, and I nudged Sharon, and I said, what's next door? What's that laughter? She goes, oh, that's the Al-Anons. I said, well, what do they got to laugh about? And she said, I don't know, they're the sicker ones. That's what she told me. So I just kind of leaned back. I didn't hear the speaker that night because they would laugh and then they'd be quiet. And then they would laugh, and I was almost laughing with them. And I don't know what was going on. So then there was a 2-hour meeting. We have a 15-minute break. So I went out in the hall, and I looked in the door, and there was my sponsor in this Al-Anon meeting. And her eyes just like, you know, she jumped up, came right out. She goes, well, I was getting ready to talk to you next week about this. And I go, about what? And she goes, and here's the part. She knew I hated alcoholics. The self-hatred I took into that other meeting was about me. I just hated myself because I became the very thing I did not want to be, just like my parents. I became just like them. And I didn't want to be like them or my brothers or any alcoholics, and I hated drunks. And here I was in a recovering program for those very things. And she said, I want you, and you know, in those days, when your sponsor, they'd ask you, are you willing to go to any lengths for your own recovery? I did not care whether I made it in AA or not. I was going to kill myself, and she asked me to wait till I went through the steps. And she said, when we get to the 12th step, she said, if you still feel like killing yourself, go right ahead. And I said, in a meeting? She goes, yeah. No problem. And I said, okay. And I was doing the action because in this program, in Al-Anon, they have action too. And she would say, and this is what she told me in that doorway that night, and I've never forgotten it. She said, I want you to go to Al-Anon now, Artis. And I go, whoa. And just like every closed-minded person about Al-Anon, I knew nothing about it, but knew I didn't need it. And I said, first of all, Beverly, I'm not stupid enough to marry an alcoholic, nor even date one. I didn't even like them around me. And here the only alcoholics that were around me were recovering. And that's as far as it was going to go for me. And she said, I didn't say, Artis, about going to Al-Anon because you're in love with an alcoholic. I said, go to Al-Anon because it will make you a better sponsor. And she said, also, someone's drinking has affected your life. I've never heard it put that way before. Because everything that we've ever heard about Al-Anon was the wives. And in every Al-Anon, I went to a lot of Al-Anon conferences, and they all get up, we love an alcoholic. Yeah, they do. But I didn't. So why am I going to Al-Anon? Because Al-Anon dealt with the family disease. It's just the only thing I was hearing was the spouse stuff. And this is before they broke out into adult children and CODA. You know, my opinion, I got an opinion. CODA is for people that didn't want to work Al-Anon. Sorry, that's just my opinion. She told me, she said, Artis, you need some tools. And I'm going to give you the tool that she gave me that night. It has worked for 21 years. If you don't use it, that's your deal. I don't really care if you use it. But I use it. I used it before I got up here. I use it in every workshop. And this tool, because in our literature, doesn't matter what program, in our literature in Al-Anon, we have to have these. And it's called open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty. And I had no idea how to have those honesty, open-minded, and willingness. I didn't know how to get that. Honesty, I thought, did I steal? I know what honesty is. But she wasn't talking about that kind. It was about being honest with yourself. And open-minded was not missing the message because of the messenger. And willingness was going to any leaks where you didn't want to. And she gave me this little prayer, and I say it in the moment of silence in every meeting I ever go to, and it goes like this. First of all, I had to have a higher power. And I believed in God. I didn't have a problem with that because I'm from Tulsa and Oral Roberts, you know, all that stuff. But she said, I didn't ask you if you believe in God. It has to be a power greater than Artis. Children who come out of an alcoholic home will either go one way or the other. They'll be exactly like their parents or the opposite. Well, I kind of had both. I took up their disease, but I did the opposite in their values. I have not ever cheated on a lover. I don't even know what that's like. I didn't do that when I drank because I hated the way they did each other all those years. I came in with some values. And, you know, people say that we don't have them. I think some of us come in with some. It's just that they're so far back that we don't even care anymore. You know? And she told me, she said that if I went to Al-Anon and I had the open-mindedness and I prayed this prayer, it will work for me. It goes like this. God, let me hear what you want me to hear. Let me share what you want me to share, and I'm willing to have an open mind. That is the how of it. That means that when I go to a meeting, I'm only going to hear what I need to hear. I don't care what you hear. And then I only share what God wants me to share within me. I know people say, well, before I kept relapsing in the other program because I did that. Oh, they'll share that. I got to share better than that. And I went through all that. And I went through all those mistakes of understanding Al-Anon. I sat there with a closed mind, and I couldn't get it until I started saying this. And when I said that prayer in the meeting, I heard these women who I had absolutely nothing in common with. Women who had raised families and did all these things sharing how I felt inside. That was the first connection to the human race I had ever had. Because in an alcoholic home, do you know why Al-Anons don't do cross-talking? Let me tell you why. I was just awed by this when they told me this 21 years ago. Because, you know, this woman was sharing, I said, that's shit. That's no good. And they said, shh, shh. I went, what? We don't talk when someone's sharing. And I said, really? And why? If they're full of shit, shouldn't you tell them? And or are you afraid of them? I have been thrown out of a meeting, so but it's been a long time. But I get it now. Could I have some water? Thank you. So she said the reason we don't crosstalk is because people who are in alcoholic environments, in alcoholic homes or our relationships, never get to finish a thought, never get to finish a sentence. And that's true. I never got to do that in my home. And there was something that happened that shut me down at the age of 7, and I didn't even know I was shut down. My oldest brother did the punishing, and somebody stole 50 cents or a Pepsi or whatever the hell it was that day, and we were lined up, and he said these words, "If you tell the truth, you won't get hurt." And I remember feeling, oh, God, I didn't take it, so I wasn't worried about it. And my brother said, "Why don't you tell him you took it, because he's not going to hit a girl real hard." I go, "Because I didn't take it." And they said, "Well, you ought to confess to it." One of them took it, but I didn't take it. And what he said was, you got to choose between your face or your stomach. And once he asked you the question, if you lied to him, you were either going to get hit in the face or you were going to get hit in the stomach. So he came to me and he said, "Did you steal that 50 cents or wherever it was?" And I said, "No." First he said, "Stomach or face?" And I said, "Stomach." And he said, "Did you steal that 50 cents?" I said, "No." And he knocked me clear across the room. And that was the beginning of double messages that I did not understand. Double messages all the time, and if you think they've stopped, listen to us sometimes. Double messages drive me up a wall. I didn't know it were double messages till I came into Al-Anon. So I started going like Beverly said. And I was in a room. There were no gay meetings then. I was the only lesbian sober in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now I'm in Al-Anon. And I'm sitting there using the tools and not believing in it. And she told me something. She said, "Artis, you fluctuate between psychotic and neurotic." And I go, "What does that mean?" And she goes, "Because I've been in a lot of mental wards. They never really explained anything to me. They would just sedate me." And she said, psychotics believe 2 and 2 is 5. Neurotics believe 2 and 2 is 4 and worries about it. And I would fluctuate between that emotion all the time. So that helped me understand a little bit, And she said, when you're new in Al-Anon, sometimes you have to trust somebody to think for you for a little bit, just till you get through the steps. And then when you get through the steps, you can have your mind back. Because and I'm a well-educated woman, but I was absolutely nuts. Being locked up in those little rooms, and I'm a recovering stalker, and I before it became a federal offense, I didn't understand, like most of us, what love was. I would go to the gay bars, and and let me tell you, the gay community was very cruel. They were very cruel to me. An old gay guy that I used to talk to when I was hanging out at the bars when I was 13 and 14 said, "Artis, all gay life is youth and money." He said, "That's all. You don't have youth, looks, and money, you're out." I thought, "Oh, that can't be true because I was born this way." And I said, "Doesn't make sense if you just have to be pretty and have money to be gay. Everybody that's pretty and have money would be gay." And he goes, "No, that's gay lifestyle." And I never understood what he was saying for years until I got into the gay community. And I saw that and nothing wrong with y'all who are pretty. Keep on with your deal. But I wasn't pretty, and I didn't have money, and they were very cruel. Lesbians were very cruel to me. And I was a joke to them. And I've never forgotten some of the things, and I've worked through the steps on it. But there was this bar one night, and I was in this bar, and I was so lonely that and there were such pretty lesbians in there, and they were, flirting with each other, and never really paid any attention to me. And so I went home, and I called the bar back and asked to speak to the prettiest girl there, and I told her I was a secret admirer, and that I've been watching her from afar. I saw it in a movie. And she was impressed, and she didn't know who I was, and I just told her I didn't want anything. I just wanted to tell somebody that I loved them. I've never said it. So I said, I love you, and I don't want anything from you. And you probably met people like me at the bar. You just don't talk about us that much. So I would call her every weekend. And then I would go to the bar and watch her. And she would be telling about who could it be? Do you think it's Sally? Do you think it's, she's never going to mention my name. So, I finally, just got something out of that. And I went up to her and was dancing, and I'm a great dancer. I was a great dancer, and they had dance contests in those days, but you had to have a partner. So I went up to ask her to dance, and she said, no way. And I looked at her, and I saw that all that beauty was gone that was all in my head. And I went to school with Anita Bryant. She failed history, so she was in my class. And so it was during the gay revolution. So I was so hurt by her disgusting look at me that I went back and I ran into the bar and I turned, it was jukebox, this is how old we are. I unplugged the jukebox, I got up on the table and I said, I like Anita Bryant. And they grabbed me and threw me out of the bar. And they would just so, and I would go back and spit on them, and they would come out, and this is lesbian fighting. This is real stuff. But when I went to that meeting of Al-Anon, I carried a lot with me. And nothing to disrespect the other program, but I didn't know how Al-Anon could help me. I don't care if you sober up. I don't care about any of that. My 2 brothers were killed by a drunk driver. My dad died of alcoholism, so did my mom. And I had another brother that died, and my aunt, he was one that abused me a lot, and I went on his deathbed, and because of Al-Anon, I was able to go. I had just about 3 years. And I went to his bed, and we're Indian, so there was a medicine man going, hey, dancing. He was in a coma. And I'm sitting there, and this Indian medicine man is trying to bring him out of the coma. Get ready for this. He came out of the coma. And I was sitting there, wow. I was like, wow. That was pretty good, And he came out of the coma. He did not ask for his wife. He did not ask to see his children. He asked for a beer. And my niece ran and got him one, which was fine. And he drank it, and he died the next day. And I went to funerals with no feelings, and I would go into Al-Anon. It took me 3 years in Al-Anon to start reading this literature for me. I was always reading it to say how I could get them to get off my back or to get them to understand me or whatever. But I never read it just for me. And my relationships were just as crazy as my family. And I really didn't know what I wanted, because when my brother hit me at 7 years old for telling the truth, I never told the truth again. And I didn't know what it was anyway, because I was always in the bars. And in Al-Anon, when I learned that I'm fluctuating between psychotic and neurotic all the time, I didn't know how to not do that, because I've been in the best mental wards and they didn't know what to do with me. They drew a white line across the chalkboard and said, that's reality and you're not touching any of it. And I thought, how can I not be touching it? I work the emergency room. And they said, because you know how to work, because someone taught you how to work. And that was my life continuously. And in my 11th year in Al-Anon, I winded up in a mental institution. And the reason is because I still was not connecting on an emotional level. My relationships, people liked me and we had fun, but intimacy, I didn't know till my 4th year, somewhere around there, the sex has nothing to do with intimacy. Because if you put your hand on my leg, I thought you wanted sex. I had to learn what affection was. I had to learn what a hug, an unconditional hug was. Because I went to the meetings, but I didn't care for all the hugging and the touching and all that, and I learned. And my sponsor would say, Artis, if somebody touches you, they don't always want sex with you. And I said, yeah, right. Why are they touching me? It's called affection. We just didn't have affection. And I had to learn a whole new way of thinking. I had to learn how to communicate. I was like emotionally, mentally retarded. I had no way. I had all the right emotions, but they were screwed up. And I was a loner. And I still am a loner in my own way. And I worked the steps, and I worked the steps, and I got to step 3, made the decision to turn my will, my life over to the care of God as I understand God, because I got my own God. Got my own God now. I used my sponsor's God till I got to that point in my program. Because the God that I understood didn't like gay people and was going to throw us into hell forever. Now, why would I turn my will over to that? And she said, use my God until you can get your own. And I did. And how I got my own, I'm going to share with you. I was in an Al-Anon meeting, and she told me, she said, you need to pick a speaker. And I said, I don't know how to pick a speaker. And she goes, that's good. Well, we know that. She goes, but pray to God to ask God to pick the speaker for you. And I said, how do I do that? She goes, just say, God, I got to pick a speaker. Show me which one. Well, how am I going to know? She goes, I don't know. You'll just know. And, you know, nothing makes sense in Al-Anon. Nothing makes sense in AA. You know, I've never done anything that made any sense. And I'll tell you right now, I've never, ever done anything I believed in Al-Anon. I haven't. And the same thing happened to me in the other program. The same thing I'm getting ready to tell you. So I went, not literally the same thing, but I went and I was, they had a circle and people were sharing. And I went, and this guy started sharing, and inside I thought, this is the guy. There was a feeling that I should pick this guy to speak, and I can't stand him. And I said, I don't care about, I'm not going to pick this guy. I said, must be something wrong with God, you know, because he's an asshole, you know. So we go around, I'll change it, say his name is Bob, just to save grace. And then I'll go over here, and Tom starts sharing really, really, really good stuff. So I said, would you come to our meeting on Thursday night and share? He said, sure, it'd be an honor, you know, how we are so spiritual. And he said, oh, it'd be an honor. And I said, great. And so I go home, and true as daylight, the phone's ringing, I pick it up, and it's Bob. He said, Artis, Tom, emergency came up, can't come, and he asked me to speak. And I said, what? He said, I don't know what happened, but where's the meeting? And I said, I gave him the directions. Now, you think I would have went, oh, my God, what a... No, I was pissed. Because, you know, the speaker represents me, you know. So I go to the group, and Deb's there, and she says, did you get a speaker? Did you get a speaker? And I go, I didn't pick this speaker. God picked this speaker. And I was so cynical. And she goes, okay, well, when he gets here, she was kind of like Carrie. Now, when she gets here, here's what you do. You go over here. So I said, oh. And she goes, don't pick it. Now, when you introduce him, you got to do this. You got to stand up. You got to pull over. I said, I'm not introducing this guy. And she goes, what? And I said, I'm not introducing him. I'm telling you, he's a loser. And she goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here we go. And she changed it around, and she introduced him. And okay, he comes, and he's 5 minutes late for the meeting. See, loser. I'm right. But remember the tool that Beverly gave me and Joni gave me, and they said, always say it. Right before the meeting, I said this, let me hear what you want me to hear. Let me share what you want me to share, and I'm willing to have an open mind. I said this prayer that I didn't even understand. And he came and he got up to the podium and he gave the most wonderful talk. Wonderful talk. I mean, I was relating to so much. And there's a thought that came to me, and I was sitting there, and Deborah was going, wow, that guy's good. And I said, do I owe him an amends? She goes, no, you didn't say nothing to him, did you? I went, no. I said, I just gave him the address. I didn't say you're a loser. She said, well, you said it to me. So I owe Deb an amends. But there were two things that came along. I'm going to pass it to you. First of all, I felt a presence of a God that was mine. That this presence felt like a God who had a sense of humor, a God who loved to laugh and say, "Yo-ho, gotcha." That kind of God. It was that kind of feeling. It wasn't putting me down. It was a very nurturing kind of laughter that you thought you could do out, it's like God was saying, I'm going to do my will in your life whether you like it or not. Now, you want to quit fighting me? And that's what I felt. And I still feel that today. The second thing I learned was do not miss the message because of the messenger. I always thought only the spiritual giants could share with me. And I picked who I was going to sponsor. And I picked my sponsors. And there's no way, I'm not doing that anymore. I haven't done that since I got out of the mental ward. And what happened was I had absolutely, there's a saying about resentments that they only hurt ourselves. And when I went to that mental ward, I left an Al-Anon meeting so depressed and so confused and so lost. I went home to kill myself. And it was a very powerful night for me because I don't get Al-Anon and AA mixed up, but I know that this was all about Al-Anon because I couldn't break down till that happened in that meeting. I couldn't let God because I was so afraid He wanted me to be straight and He was going to turn me straight. That's how deep it went with me. And my hatred for straight people, and my hatred for men, and my hatred for the gay community. I was actually asexual for many, many years. And God reached so deep into my soul and pulled it out and said, don't be afraid. It's going to be okay. It was that kind of feeling inside me. And Beverly told me this. She said, Artis, if God wanted you, if He turned you straight, let's say He turned you into a heterosexual. I said, yeah. She said, you'd like it. You wouldn't not like it. She goes, remember when you came here and how you hated us and now you love us? Oh yeah. Well, not all of you. And she goes, no, not all of us, but you, remember we're in that saying where it says, you may not like all of us, but you'll love us in a very special way, the way we learn to love you. And that was coming true for me. And we started looking at what my fears were. I was terrified of everything because I didn't know anything. Ellen DeGeneres pissed me off. She was on Oprah with that nut, Annie Hicks. And she had the gall to Annie Hicks. I saw her and I just wanted her. And I'm sitting there, I have been beat up for being gay. I have been persecuted by my family. I've been in mental institutions because of it, and it's just a friggin' choice. I was so angry, I couldn't, and my sponsor, you think what my sponsor said? No more TV. I think it was, this is after they broke up. 7 years later, I'm in Miami, Jackie Gleason Theater, big sign, Ellen DeGeneres is coming. And she was still with Annie Hicks. That's right. And so I got on my Vespa, zoomed to there, bought a $45 ticket, got in there and was, she does like Carol Burnett does. When her routine's over, she turns on the lights. Any questions? And I was going to go, hello. Why didn't you stand up and say that we're born this way? We don't have choices. Because they made it sound like it was so easy on Oprah. I don't know if you all remember that. And I was carried that. And I went and I would raise my head and and I was up in the balcony because that's where the $45 seats were. So she wasn't seeing me. I ran down to the lobby. I ran and I just like this. Two guys just like that and grabbed me and pulled me. Where are you going? And I said, she can't see my hand. I have an important question. And they go, well, you didn't buy the tickets down here. You don't belong down here. Get back up in the balcony. And I said, you know what? I had a moment of clarity. What the hell am I doing? I did. It was just that weird. It was like, oh my God. What am I doing? And I left there so embarrassed. I didn't know anybody there, but that's what Al-Anon does to you. It just gives you moments of clarity where I never had those before. I would have continued until I winded up in jail as a mental patient. And to me, I can't tell you what Al-Anon has done for me. When I got out, I want to tell you just a quick story of how I got in the mental ward with 11 years of Al-Anon. The thing is that it says practice these principles in all our affairs. And I was trying I did those things, and forgive me, I didn't know. But for 11 years, I did a lot of actions that worked. But I never went inside me. I did everything up here. And I could tell you anything from up here, but I never went in here. And that's a long time to share an Al-Anon. And there's a story in this book about the pigeons in the trees. And it talks about this guy goes under a tree and sits, and the pigeons do what pigeons do, which is shit on him. And the solution was, don't sit under the tree. That was just too simple. But that was the solution. And I was putting myself in situations that harmed me. I was going around people who didn't like me. If you didn't like me, I like to go around you. I don't know what that was. If you didn't invite me to your party, I went to the party to ask you why. I was absolutely insane. And I don't know how I got there, except that the sunlight of the Spirit was cut off. I started judging the meetings. I started calling the women in my group prick-whipped. I started judging how they share. It just got crazy. It's because I quit my conscious contact with the higher power. And I went home to kill myself from a meeting. And I was going to use gas because, that's just the way we do it. But I was going to hang myself one time for AA, but in Al-Anon I went for gas. And I don't know. And God will do for you, let me put it back, God will do for me what I could not do for myself. I could not reach out and tell you I was miserable. I just couldn't do it. 11 years, I can't do it. I couldn't tell you how I was hurting inside, and I couldn't tell you how I don't know nothing. I couldn't say I don't know nothing, because you were the only ones that were having anything to do with me. How could I turn on that and say I don't know nothing? Because for some reason, the disease of alcoholism lies in your head and say they're all going to hate you. They're going to think you're phony. So I couldn't be honest from within here. And I went home to kill myself, and thank God for gay men. Thank God for those fairies. Because when I went home, my sponsor taught me always call someone before you take a drink, a pill, or kill yourself. And she added get married, but that was for the guys. But I called Christopher, who was a gay guy that I love dearly, who's been my friend for many, many years. A young man. He's younger than me, but he was like the son I never wanted. But I loved him dearly. And I called him and I said, Christopher, and I could always talk to Christopher. You can always talk to a gay guy. And I said, Christopher, I can't take this anymore. I said, this is for heterosexuals. They used to get married. Everybody, people that have partners are happy, but people who are single in the program, you don't hear from them. It's for a family thing. It's not for somebody like me. And he said, well, could you wait before you kill yourself? Could I just come over? And I said, okay, but I'm still going to kill myself. He says, okay. And he came over and he did exactly what happened at this table tonight. He did exactly the same thing. I was so depressed and I was so lost inside myself. And the pain was so awful to be in a program. I didn't drink. I didn't take drugs. I didn't take medication. And the pain was so awful that all I wanted to do, I thought about shooting my foot off. That would be better than the pain I was feeling. And Christopher came over and he stood in the doorway of my dining room and he said, well, girl, you cannot kill yourself with your hair looking like that. And I said the same thing Lori would say. I said, what's wrong with my hair? And he said, well, Artis, these people come through the house. They're going to be looking at your body. So I did. It's something about that moment that clarity comes. That just, well, hurry up and fix my hair. And between the wash and the blow dry, he called some friends, my sponsor, and they all came and took me to this mental ward. And the mental ward won't let you out if you're suicidal. And this is where I had clarity again, the most awesome clarity. And it was, remember I wanted to shoot my foot off because that would be better than the pain inside me. And there was this girl hopping around, hopping, and I just sat down. And I looked down and she had no foot. And I said, where's your foot? And she goes, I shot it off. Clarity, it just comes. It's going to come when you least expect it. I'm telling you, Al-Anon is very, very powerful. I also learned in that mental ward, 3 days in there, and they're going, and all my Al-Anon friends are out, and my Al-Anon sponsor came and to visit me, and she said, Artis, and I was throwing up in the visiting room. Didn't drink, I couldn't eat. I said, I can't. And you know what? You can only pretend so friggin' long. And it's going to come out. What's funny, we either have a choice of quitting Al-Anon, which a lot of them do, or killing ourselves, or killing another person. That's about it. You wonder what happens to Al-Anons when they quit Al-Anon? We all know what happens to the alcoholic when he quits AA. But when an Al-Anon quits, I never quit Al-Anon, but I quit working the program and just became like a little social group to me. It doesn't work that way. And I noticed that I was worried about what these mental patients thought of me. Clarity came again. Oh my God, that's how I thought about the Al-Anons. I was worried about what these Al-Anon people thought of me. They never knew I was gay. I never talked about it with them. My sponsor was very into anonymity. No one in AA knew I was in Al-Anon. No one in Al-Anon knew I was in AA. I didn't ever talk much about my family or anything. I would just wanted the hugs. Just wanted the fellowship. Just didn't want to go back to that emptiness. And so I just thought we were just supposed to con each other. I didn't know. I didn't even know this thing was really working. Other people saw changes in me. I didn't see it. I didn't see one change until I had the psychic change of the steps. And in the fourth step, I put everything that I hated about the straights, the men, the God, the lesbians. I hated the world. I hated being gay. I hated it. I didn't want to be gay, but I certainly don't want to be straight. Well, where do you go? Where do you go when you're like that? You go insane. Psychotic to neurotic. To neurotic back to psychotic. And I did the fifth step with Bev, and I was so honest because I really didn't think this thing was going to work for me. I just didn't believe it would work. But I did the action. Action changes the feelings. Action changes the feelings. Al-Anon is not a place to do your no. Oh, I almost told you what to do. Whoa. A little bit of alcoholic in me. I was taught the difference between sharing and dumping. And it amazed me when I did the fifth step that I felt the presence of a love beyond my human comprehension. That I can have a relationship beyond my mind. I mean, I just couldn't imagine it. And the whole journey that I've been going through all these years in Al-Anon, trying to be a healthy lesbian so I went through this. I don't want to discourage anyone, but I went through the part where, well, there's a lesbian out there working on herself. You work on yourself. You meet. Never happened. Then I was supposed to work on my character defects, and when I became healthier, I could attract healthier people. Never happened. Then I thought, okay, that if I just become a good person and charming and sweet and kind, somebody's going to want to date me. And it just didn't happen. And it wasn't happening. But yet, newcomers come in and Al-Anon, and they work on their issues, and I go to so many friggin' weddings. And I thought, what's wrong with me? And my sponsor said, Artis, you've been affected by the disease of alcoholism all your life. You're not going to get well in 11 years when you've had your whole life of this. And when I came out of that ward and I finished the steps up, I've never had such a wonderful life. I have 21 years, so what is that, 11 years ago? About 11 years ago that happened. And I did the fifth step. I had a psychic change like, I'm sorry you don't have big bird, I had big ones. And then I did 6 and 7, and I looked at the part. I thought, oh, my God. I had a moment of clarity again. I have met the enemy, and it is me. Even it doesn't matter what they did. I went to God like that speaker said last night. I said, what do you want from me? What do you want from me, God? I know you know I was born this way. I can't change. It's just not going to happen. What do you want from me? And I never heard anything. And I asked this Al-Anon woman, I said, I never know what God wants from me. And she goes, well, ask him to show you something that no one else would understand but you. And I go, what? And she said, well, like in a dream. I said, oh, I don't dream. I've never had dreams. And she goes, oh, well, that's a good one. Ask him to show you in a dream. And I said, Al-Anon's come up with this shit like out of nowhere. You can be standing there. Just real quick, I was depressed and I went up to Beverly in a meeting like this, and I said, I just can't take life anymore. She goes, well, go greet at the door. And I went, what? She said, go greet at the door. And that has nothing to do with what I said. She goes, that's right. Go greet at the door. And I went to the door and greeted, and that depression left. I'm telling you, it makes no sense. So, what do? I go home, and I got on my knees. I said, God, I don't understand you, but I do know you understand me. I don't know what you want from me. I don't fit in this. Where do you want me? Please show me. What is your will for me? And I got in bed and went to sleep, and I thought it was the phone ringing in the middle of the night, and it was a cricket. It was a cricket, and it woke me up. I picked up the phone, and there wasn't anybody, and it was a cricket. But I remember I had a dream. I had this dream, and I was, oh my God, and I remember it vividly. So I go to my home group, and there's a child psychologist in our home group, and I told her, I said, I had this dream, and I don't understand it. And she said, well, how'd you wake up? Because you have to wake up within, and she said that. How'd you wake up? You have to wake up within 30 minutes of the dream. I go, a cricket woke me up. She goes, oh, well, okay. And that proved to me that the dream was real, that it wasn't in my imagination. She didn't understand the dream. So I went to a gay guy, and we were at dinner. And I said, Jamie, I had this dream. I don't understand. And he goes, what was it? I said, well, I'm sitting in this beautiful chair, and across from me is this woman, and her hair's blowing, and she's got a bandana on. I was describing all the clothes. He goes, well, what's she look like? I said, I couldn't see her face. But I said, the feeling I had was so, I've never had that feeling in my entire life, Jamie. I said, it's like a feeling I can't even describe. I said, I just kept staring at her, and she kept looking back at me, and I just felt this overwhelming love. Love like I've never comprehended before. He said, well, honey, I don't want to shock you, but the woman you described, the way she's dressed was you. And I went, me? He goes, yeah, that's the way you look. You wear those bandanas, your hair's all curly, you got those jeans on, and you always wear your collar up. And I didn't even recognize me. And that's what God wanted from me, to love me. That's all He's ever wanted. He's never wanted anything else from me but to love me. And when I worked on my program and looked at all the past, this is me, this is God. And I kept going through the steps, month after month, year after year. And I kept going, and we came like this. And I fell in love with me. It's the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. Now I don't need a girlfriend. Now I want one. That's the difference. That is actually the difference. I have so much self-esteem. I'm so in love with me. I mean, she's going to have to be sharp. I want to close because I know, Al-Anons would stay as long as I talk. But I don't know how many alcoholics are in here. I fell in love with me. I don't remember when it was, but I woke up because this was the prayer I prayed for 12 of the 13 years. I prayed, God, before I fell in love with me, I prayed this. Let me meet a woman who I can love and cherish and adore and share spiritual life with her and share my life with her and go places with her and do things and laugh and have fun. And I've been praying this not only in sobriety but since I've been a little girl. But I added the spirituality as I got through the program. Every morning, meditation, I put it in there. And one morning, I said, especially I wanted to grow old with her. I thought of growing old with another human being, just thought it was so romantic. In the movies, it was awesome, you know. And I just saw everything about love in movies. And so I prayed that. And one morning, I woke up, I was old, I was alone, and I was in love. That was me. That's exactly what I wanted, and it was me, and I didn't even know that. And the thing I guess I want to end this with is this journey in Al-Anon. You know, it's not like anything I've ever comprehended. It's the best kept secret in recovery. It's not going to, if somebody asks me to explain Al-Anon, I can't. I just can't. And if you come in and you're from the other programs, and I don't care what the other programs is, you're a newcomer here. You don't know nothing. Because I came in and I thought this was all I knew. And I only had a year in the other one, but I thought I knew Al-Anon. No, not all of us love the alcoholic in Al-Anon. I sponsor a lot of abused women, you know. And thank God for those women who loved the alcoholic. Because they showed us how to, you know. Today, I have no hatred in my heart for any alcoholic or drunk or any of my brothers or any of my family. I have forgiven those who have beaten me up and persecuted me and molested me. I have let go of all the fears and anxiety of what was going to happen to me. All the time, I had that neurotic and psychotic behavior. Today, I've replaced neurotic and psychotic with happy, joyous, and free. And I couldn't get that in any mental ward. There wasn't a lesbian walking this earth that could love me into that. No girl, no woman. I tried that. It didn't work. Today, I know within my innermost self that I have been restored to sanity, that I have a very sound mind, and that I have no fear of looking into my heart anymore. And most of the time, I talk from my heart. You know, that's why if I've said anything today that has offended you, I want you to call your sponsor. And I want you to tell your sponsor what I said that was so upsetting to you. Because while you're praying for me, I'm going to be having a good time. Thank you.